Um, okay, so welcome to the initial experimental episode of JD's Cinematic Geekery. This is where I'm going to take a journey watching movies that I should have seen a long time ago and finally watching them. Or maybe I'll get to the point where I'll start taking on movies that I couldn't finish before, and maybe the planets will align and the time will be right. I don't know. But this week, I decided to do this because everybody has an unwritten list in their heads of movies they have to see. Well, this movie, The Phantom, was on that list. But it was my two guests talking about it on Facebook and me butting into the conversation to mention I'd never seen it to get me to finally see it. So if my guests could introduce themselves. Liz?
Oh, man, I was hoping Fred would go first.
Curses, foiled again.
Hi, I'm Liz, and I love this movie. I love movies in general, except for horror movies and things that are gross. But cheese, action, rom-coms to an extent, the campier the better. That's my thing. It's my jam. Basically, April through August is like Liz movie time.
Except when the virus closes theaters, right?
I know. It's been rough. It's been rough.
Sucks.
I know.
And,
no Wonder Woman yet.
Yeah. Didn't they push that back to October? I'm kind of annoyed.
Yeah, I know. So.
And that leaves Fred.
Hi, I'm Fred. I am the owner admin of JoeBattleLines.com for the 5 of you that actually know what the hell that is.
Hey, I love that website. I defend it all the time. I mean, back when, it was relevant and I had to
defend it. And I like to say that my media interests are of that of someone 40 years older than me, because I grew up being obsessed with like old radio shows, old TV shows, pulp characters, Doc Savage, The Shadow, The Phantom, which is what led me to see this movie the weekend it opened in the summer of '96.
Oh.
This is a movie that definitely came and went in the theater. I do remember when I worked at Blockbuster from 1998 to 2001, we had the VHS tape of this movie. It was there. I was aware of it.
VHS.
But I just...
Blockbuster?
I don't know. It just... that job was excellent.
Oh, I'm sure.
And despite the fact that it was like a stereotype right out of Clerks, as I already was, I mean, I've just further embodied it after that. But then it gave way to the corporate bought the franchise store I worked in and changed it all up. And what they didn't realize is that they were ushering in the apocalypse of the video rental store anyways. So if only they had known the cosmic consequences that they were going to help bring about by deciding to unfranchise that store, that was the beginning of the death knell for VHS. That was it. I'm blaming that particular transaction. So the movie's been recommended to me over the years, but it just kept falling off the radar. Well, because we've all been quarantined, on Facebook, there's a lot of daily challenges floating around. And one of them was to, Fred, what was it? Post screenshots of movies that you love or whatever?
Yeah, it was post screenshots of movies that you love. And since I had already done it a year before, I couldn't use any of the first round movies.
It's a good thing you love movies.
Yeah.
Well, Fred posted one from The Mummy. And
hell yeah.
I absolutely love The Mummy. So much so that it belongs on my very, very short list of what I believe are perfect movies.
Yeah.
I could see that.
And in the comments, somehow The Phantom was brought up, and I said, well, I haven't seen that yet. And I did. I rented it on Amazon. I watched it the other day. So you both seen it before. Fred, you saw it in the theater. Liz, did you see it in the theater?
I did not see it in the theater.
Okay,
it's
so
probably Fred who introduced the movie to me, is my guess.
Okay.
Very
right,
possibly. When
yeah,
the time we
most
lived together,
likely,
and I'd be
yeah.
like, "Holy crap, you need to watch this!"
Yes.
And it's got young Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Oh, I forgot she was in it. So good.
Well, I was shocked because here's what I knew about the movie off the top of my head before I sat down to watch it. I knew Billy Zane was the star, and I like Billy Zane and everything he's been in. I knew offhandedly that The Phantom was like a pulp era newspaper comic strip or something.
Yep.
I mean, I knew about that. I knew he had the horse. But I didn't really specifically about this movie. I literally didn't know anything, so much so that I was delighted when Treat Williams popped up on the screen in this period specific mustache that was really well tailored. And then a little later in the movie, when Catherine Zeta-Jones pops up, I did not expect it. I didn't see it at all. But what was funny was because up until that point, I had already started to get a little bit of vibe the same vibes that I get when I watch The Mask of Zorro. And then she popped up on the screen. I'm like, what the hell was it? Like destiny that this movie was going to influence? It had to have influenced her decision to, to make that movie. But I was already, from the beginning, I was seeing influence or footprints of different movies in this one. And I love when I can watch a movie and I can sit down and I can be reminded throughout it of a lot of other movies that I like. And I can tell that the people making this, even if they didn't take direct influence from something, you can tell that they appreciate the same type of movies. And that is exactly where I was with this.
Bit of trivia, and I rewatched it this afternoon before we did Father's Day stuff because I really wanted to. I ordered it on Blu-ray like last week before we even talked about this, ironically enough. The day that JD pitched it, it was supposed to arrive. It is somewhere between Los Angeles and here. I don't know where the hell it is. So
the man is keeping it from you.
And it is crazy pricey. So I was like, I'm not going to run out and rebuy it yet because I got a good deal on eBay. But anyway, the first thing I noticed, because, The Phantom is one of those movies where the credits are at the end. So it starts off and it just drops you right into it with the greatest intro ever for those who came in late. And the origin is done in 2 minutes, and then bam, there we go.
Yep.
I really appreciated that part for those who came in late.
But here's the kicker that I forgot about this until today. The movie was written by Jeffrey Boehm. Jeffrey Boehm and a certain guy named Carlton Cuse, who worked on Lost and other things, created another show, a TV show that I know Liz is a big fan of.
Oh, what?
Which is probably why. The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr.
God, I love that song. That show so much.
The Phantom has that sort of pulp adventure, swashbuckly sort of vibe. The same as Mask of Zorro. The same as films like The Rocketeer. Somewhat like The Shadow, although The Shadow got more serious. But same thing like The Mummy, where it's just this. You sit back and you realize your tub of popcorn is not going to be big enough. And your drink is not big enough because you don't want to leave once it starts.
It's just pure escapism. Like you just watch it, and for an hour and 30 minutes or however long, you feel good.
Yeah,
like just enjoyable.
It's not a preachy movie. It's not a dour movie. It's not a political movie. It is the good guys are good guys. The bad guys are evil people, and it's
clear cut.
Oh, and there's a purity
one or the other, exactly.
Yeah, there's a purity of that from that pulp era where, and one of the things that caught me today, and I'm probably jumping way ahead on this, but there was a scene where he slides down the elevator cables because he's chasing after Diana, who's with Xander Drax, and he runs out in the lobby and he bumps into this woman. She drops her purse. He stops, picks up her purse, hands it to her, and then goes on. And I'm like, that's why I love Kit Walker. Kit Walker is just a good person, period. It's not an act for him. When he puts on the Phantom costume, he is the Phantom because that's who he is. He's just a good person. Love this movie.
Yep. So good. So good.
So, Fred, did you know you knew the Phantom obviously before the movie came out?
So the Phantom.
Did you read the comic strip? Because, like I said, that's where I know it from. But I'm sure he had a bigger basis in media. Besides that, that's just where I knew it from. So
it's weird. I knew the Phantom first, oddly enough, from a cartoon that aired in 1986, which was an attempt to take a bunch of King Features Syndicate characters and mash them all up into this like superhero team called the Defenders of the Earth. And
I remember that.
That's a really memorable title.
The Defenders of the Earth featured Flash Gordon, Mandrake the Magician, who was created the year before the Phantom, and then this guy. They realized, well, we need somebody else. We need a strong guy. So they made up this dude Lothar, who he was basically he looked like Roadblock from G.I. Joe, but he was strong. That was his whole thing. He was the mechanic who was strong. They couldn't get Mr. T apparently. So I knew I was first introduced to him from that, and then I started reading around and I found out about that the Phantom was this newspaper character that he was actually, and this is the weird thing, the Phantom is actually the first like spandex costume superhero that there ever was, because before the Phantom in newspapers, he came about in 1936. Before that, all the characters were like the Shadow, the Doc Savage types. They wore regular clothes. The Phantom had that whole skin tight, spandex look, which was easier to draw. And then Superman debuted in 37? I think thereabouts. But
something like that.
So he was the first. So I didn't realize this. The same dude, Lee Falk, wrote the newspaper strips. This is crazy. From 1936 till he died in 1996.
What?
Yeah, like the same dude wrote it for 60 years. He dictated the final stories in his hospital bed to his wife. The story is that he had to take his oxygen mask off so he could tell her more.
That's so Phantom.
And then it's still going now. They've had other writers, so it's still a newspaper strip.
Wow.
And it's actually crazy popular in like Australia, New Zealand.
Newspapers still exist? What?
Which is how Billy Zane was first introduced to the character. He was filming Dead Calm in Australia and stumbled across it in the newspaper and ended up tracking down a collection, kind of became a fan of it, and lobbied for the part in the film. However, one more random bit of trivia, since apparently I'm on a trivia binge here. Billy Zane was up against one other person. There were I think 3 finalists for the role. Billy Zane was one. I don't remember who the second one is, so he doesn't matter. And the third one was someone we've already mentioned from a TV show, Mr. Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
Okay, look, I love Bruce Campbell. The guy is great in everything he's in.
Wouldn't have been right for the part.
No.
Wouldn't have been right. I love Bruce.
Nobody can ham it up like he can. And that's actually exactly the reason why I'm glad that he did not get this part.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because the sincere, honest, and completely.
He's not genuine. Kit Walker has that sort of just I don't even know. Like, you could trust him with your daughter kind of thing.
He doesn't lie.
Yeah.
If you notice in the movie, he doesn't actually lie. Like that scene where your dog's a wolf. Is he? You know, like it's just the way he is. Or when he's paying the cabbie in New York, and he doesn't have any U.S. money, and he pulls out this bag of jewels, and he's like, "Here's a star sapphire. This is an emerald. Oh, just take the whole thing."
Yeah.
You know, that's so Kit Walker, because it's like, oh, money doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked the earnestness which Billy Zane played this part. Like,
That's the right word.
I never once did not buy him in the part. He embodied the character so well, and both identities. Now, I imagine had I seen this in '96 or in the couple years that followed, I don't know that I would have liked it, no doubt about that. I don't know that I would have had the appreciation for it then that I do now, because one thing that kept coming back every time he would deliver a line, and again, it didn't matter if it was as the Phantom or as Kit, what he reminded me of was Chris Evans as Steve Rogers in Captain America, the first Avenger.
Yeah.
Never once on the screen did I not buy that Steve Rogers was exactly how he was presenting himself, and that is exactly how Kit Walker presented himself here, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
There is a quote from Christopher Reeve, and it was when he was playing Superman. And he is probably the only other, person that I've really seen just play this type of character so perfectly. And Christopher Reeve says, that when he always believed Superman, when he's talking about truth, justice, and the American way, and everybody kind of laughs, he doesn't get the joke because he honestly believes in those ideals. He honestly believes in everything he says and is living to be the example that he wants other people to follow. Chris Evans had that as Captain America, and Billy Zane, who usually plays villains and some pretty vile characters.
He's got a villainous face.
But he is, yet in this movie, he was perfect.
Perfect, yeah.
It's probably the only time I think I can remember seeing him as a hero.
Well,
probably.
Here is, okay, again, I mentioned The Mummy is on my short list of movies that are perfect. Real quick, here's a rundown of what I consider to be a perfect movie. They are not necessarily my favorite movies, although some of them do make that list. But where it comes down to perfect for me is I am a person who I don't tend to think to death or nitpick to death movies even movies that I dislike. I'll usually find a couple reasons, and I don't need to go further. But if I can sit down and watch a movie, and not once, not at any performance or at any of the actors or any of the characters or the plot points or the humor, if I can watch a movie and not once get annoyed enough to get taken out of it by one particular thing that just wrecks a scene, or if I can watch the whole movie without actually wondering, like if I never stop to think about, it looks like something was missing there because this feels incomplete, or it feels like somebody else should have been in this role and they got this person as a replacement. Never once during this movie did I get annoyed or that I had to question if there's something else that they should have been doing or that it seemed like they were doing. The only few movies that I can think of, The Princess Bride is one. That movie is
such a great
perfect
movie.
From the MGM logo all the way to the end of the song during the end credits. I don't think there is such a thing as another movie that is actually flawless than The Princess Bride. But I think The Mummy is also on that list because it is ridiculous, but it's fun. And I buy it from every performance on the screen. I buy it. I believe the characters exist as the characters. The actors do not distract me from the parts. because every once in a while there's a movie that sometimes I'll watch a movie and be like, you know what, I really like the character, but the actor is just not in this case.
Yeah.
Every person in this movie, I bought it. They played it. You know what? I'm glad. Again, this is why I'm glad Bruce Campbell didn't do it, because there would have been a cheese factor that I expected from this movie, and was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't there. This movie took itself seriously without taking itself too seriously.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
In that respect, where it's kind of got, like, some of the situations get ridiculous.
But it's that whole suspension of, suspension of disbelief?
Willful suspension of disbelief.
There we go.
Yep.
So, and that has it, and Princess Bride has that, and it's just like, okay, giant boulder's gonna run towards me, and there's a whole load of snakes. Sure, I buy that. And also, I don't look at my watch. That's always my big thing. Like, if I am fully engrossed in a movie, I don't look at my watch. If I do, it's like, I obviously checked out enough to be like, how much longer?
Yeah.
A lot of times when I watch a movie, usually, especially if it's something I've never seen, I'll put my phone down or I'll put it across the room so I'm not tempted to look at it, because I don't want to, because then I do miss what's going on the screen. This movie, never once did I feel compelled. The phone was in the other room, and I just sat and I just watched it. Every part in this movie made me think, well, first of all, there's a couple of moments that I haven't read the comic strip, but there were some certain bits that happened in this movie that felt to me like they were cinematic recreations of iconic panels from the when the Phantom is in the zoo, when he drops down from up above and he does the superhero landing, and he looks back and the cab driver is there, and he stops the cab just in time, and I'm like, that screamed out to me that this is a tribute to the cartoon or the comic strip that produced it. I don't know, but that's what it felt like. The rescue, the escape from the plane before it crashes into the mountain. That too felt like an iconic moment from media that I had not consumed, but it felt like that's where it would have been pulled from faithfully. I have absolutely no complaints or nitpicks about this movie. That, I swear to God, happens every 10 years or so. I'll find a movie that does, and this movie goes on that list.
I'll give you one that you're going to have. I'm not going to ruin the movie for you. It's something outside of it. Do you know this was planned as the first of a trilogy? There were supposed to be 2 others, and because of the box office, that makes me mad as hell every time I watch it, because I'm like, this is the kind of movie that I think, like, man, this is what summers are for. This is a July 4th kind of going
Independence Day.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And this is just me sitting there having a good time coming out, and it's like getting my new hero,
I am of 2 minds with that on this. First of all, it's so far removed from the release of this that it's way too late for me to have thought, I kind of wish they'd made a sequel, because if they had made a sequel, it would have been 15 years ago. And in the same time, it also kind of makes me glad, because sometimes even the best of intentions with sequels, they go off the rails.
Mummy
Returns. Can get the same cast. You can get the same cast. You can get the same writers. You can get the same director. You can get everybody back in place.
It's not the same.
Sometimes the sequel just goes too far.
That is true. P.T. Barnum, leave him wanting more.
Yes. I have that, because as much as I say The Mummy from 1999 is a perfect action movie that never once bothers me, annoys me, or makes or feels like it drags on.
Mm-hmm.
The horse is completely detached from the cart and thrown over a cliff with The Mummy Returns. Everything that The Mummy did right, The Mummy Returns does bigger and better and more obnoxiously.
So I took the day off of work to go see The Mummy Returns the day it came out. I went to a 10 o'clock showing with Donald, actually.
Oh,
Liz.
my God.
And then I went again that night because I was all set to be like pumped, because I can remember Liz and I saw The Mummy together in 99, and it came out the week before The Phantom Menace.
Yes, it did. Yep. I remember that too.
And I remember watching this movie, and I came out of there and I'm like, shit, that's the movie of the summer. Like, from start to finish. Okay, look at the era. It's set in roughly a similar era. It's that there is something about the time between World War I and World War II that is a fantastic era to set these pulp adventures.
Yeah.
The world is still fairly mysterious. There's a lot of, blank spaces on the map. You've got, as they said in this movie, dictators rising in the East, and I love that, because it's like, ooh, there's powers over here and there's stuff going on over here and we don't know what's up here. And it just makes this world where it's like, it's a world where anything could happen.
Yeah. And I love the fact that, yes, it takes place in that, between World War I and World War II, but it has that almost like, and I realize this predates it, but like Teddy Roosevelt, like Age of Adventure and, the Rough Riders kind of feel to it, where, a man's a man and a woman's a woman, unless it's Christy Swanson. In that case, she's a broad, and she's fantastic as that broad.
She's an ass kick. And so funny thing about The Phantom too, if you think about it, I think one of the reasons it ages well is the men are strong. Kit's a strong male. But the women are not weak either.
Right.
The women they're equals to the men. They are just differently skilled. Like, if you notice, like I get the impression that Christy Swanson's character, she's scrappier, than he is in some ways. You have Catherine Zeta-Jones' character, Sasha, who's the pilot, who's a lot more feline. But any one of them could hold their own in a scene. They would approach it differently. And I didn't get you didn't watch the movie and go, well, Christy Swanson's the stereotypical damsel in distress who's about to be tied to train tracks any moment.
Yeah.
No,
by Treat
in fact, her first appearance, when she is first rescued by Kit Walker as the Phantom, they get into that fight. She elbows the guy in the crotch, and then she punches him.
There's a lot of elbowing and crotches and kicking and crotches.
Yes, and of course that's always funny, no matter how old you get, no matter who you are.
That's why America's Funniest Home Videos is still on the air.
As soon as she takes the one goon out, and the Phantom looks like he was about to rescue her, and he stops, and she just sort of looks at him, and she just gives him this stare, and he just smiles at it. All I could think was, oh my God, it's Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. When she is rescued, she immediately takes control of the entire operation.
And he even says, when she goes out the door of that first room, because he's like, he hands her the rope to tie up Catherine Zeta-Jones. She decks Catherine Zeta-Jones. And then she walks out of the room and he's like, hasn't changed a bit. I'm like, I love that.
Yeah. Okay, well, first of all, I always forget how hot Christy Swanson is until I see her in a movie again. And I'm just like, oh. Yes.
And this was kind of toward the end of things for her, because Buffy was before this.
Buffy was before
when was
this.
The Chase?
Yes, The Chase was before this.
Oh.
There was, I've seen her in a bunch of stuff. Most of them predates this. I don't know what actually happened to her, but the way she did this role, I suddenly, all I could think was, oh, somebody making The Mummy clearly watched this and told Rachel Weisz to watch this, because Christy Swanson's part in this it's not British, but everything else is what I feel like Rachel Weisz's character Evie in The Mummy was modeled on, because she fights the same way. She's got the same ability to put the lead in his place without really even trying. Because in that movie, as obnoxious as Rick O'Connell can be, as portrayed by Jerry, what's his name?
Brad Fraser.
Yeah, okay. Sometimes they mix up him and Jerry O'Connell, and I can't help it.
Not a fan. You can just see here, folks.
Damn.
But no, the names, not the people, the names.
Okay.
As much as he's so devil may care in that movie, he comes off as being obnoxious sometimes, until Evie is in his presence, and suddenly he's like, and then he speaks when spoken to, really. And really, let's face it, that is how it should be in real life. But I appreciated that. And the villains. I love Treat Williams. The guy is so genuine in everything he plays.
Oh.
And Sandra Drax is like the most perfect villain name in the history of villain names.
Yes.
XANDERDRAX begins and ends in X. Like, I love that. Who says that? When you're confronted, you're essentially a prisoner in the villain's lair. You're done. You have no authority, and that's how you introduce yourself.
I will say, I do not believe in a movie before or since has the villain taken time to spell his name, and on top of that, even if it is just a split second of screen time, that could have easily derailed the scene for a second, and it does not.
No.
It absolutely works. That could have been clunky as hell. And had it been shot by a different director, maybe, that was going for a little more tongue-in-cheek, again, I love Bruce Campbell, but I'm glad that he wasn't anywhere near this. Because I like how solid this movie is and how it takes itself seriously, but is not at fault for it. It honestly is trying to show you everything that's happening on the screen, and it takes as long as it needs to without ever going overboard, and it's refreshing.
I'll tell you one thing that okay, Liz knows this for me. I am a movie soundtrack nut. Like, I love movie scores. I mean, I was a music major in college, and I was the one that, I would rather have focused on film scores than anything else.
Yeah, dude, your Facebook post that describe it's always a soundtrack.
It's always a soundtrack.
Yeah.
But when they first, the thing, one of the things I love, Thomas Newman did the score for this film, and he hadn't done like a lot of big stuff at that point. He was kind of an up and comer. And there is that first shot of the truck's going into the jungle, they got the little kid, they're going to go steal something, and the drums start pounding and they cut. And if you listen, there is a chorus they're real muted in the beginning, and they're just chanting Phantom.
I don't think I noticed that.
I didn't notice it.
Okay.
Watch the beginning again, and it's when it cuts to him in the cave, and he looks up, and you hear this Phantom. And I'm like, hell yeah. Like, I am so down for whatever comes next, because not only have you set him up, you've set him up wordlessly at that point. Because I think one of his first lines of dialogue in the movie is when he rescues the kid in the truck, and the kid's like, goes 2 walks. He's like, oh, hi. Okay.
That kid, he was funny when he called the guy a moron. That was funny. The first thing that I got upset in the movie about, and what I was afraid was a bad there's that rickety old bridge. Okay, there's a TV series called Expedition Unknown starring archaeologist Josh Gates.
I hate him, but yes.
That show has made me leery of any and all suspension bridges of any kind, no matter what condition in the jungle they're in. But this thing in particular, they decide they're all going to get out of the truck to keep the weight down, but somebody has to sit in the truck to drive it across the bridge, and they left the kid. The kid's like 7 or 8 years old. They leave him in there to drive it. And I thought, I swear to God, because, again, I didn't know what to expect from this, and I thought, if something happens to that kid, or even if it's implied that something happens because they decided to leave the kid in the truck, I'm just like, this is going to wreck the movie for it. I'm so glad they didn't do that.
No.
Not, in fact, they made it clear the kid was never in any danger at all. The bad guys were, well, that's when you realize, oh, wait, they're just cowards. They couldn't be bothered to, but yeah, the kid's never in any danger.
Fred will never steer you towards a movie where there's a kid in danger.
Well, I think it was more, I think the fear came from, first of all, I have children. Second of all, I had not expected the kid to be in there. So when they put him in that position, I thought, then I thought, okay, if something's going to happen, at least I sincerely believe that it would be off camera. But I'm just glad that they didn't even approach it.
But it does set up the fact that these guys are jerks.
Yes.
The fact that they're, kids driving, not us, kids driving.
Yeah, in fact, the main minion, I want to say, like the top.
James Remar.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
He is a great henchman in this.
Yeah, he's such a great character actor. Like
he's in this he's the top of the food chain of all the grunts.
Mm-hmm.
It was really weird because 2 weeks ago I started just renting a bunch of movies on Amazon, figuring, okay, I'll watch them when I watch them. And then I'd watch one like every other night. And I'm not kidding that in the last 3 of 4 movies before I watched The Phantom, that guy was in it. I'm just like, what the hell? This guy's everywhere.
Oh, he is, but he's never a leading man.
Nope.
No. And I recognized him from Black Lightning. That's where I remembered him from, because he plays with Jason Gombe, I think the character's name is. He's kind of the fix-it guy for Black Lightning's equipment. Well, watching him in this, I watched him in, I can't remember what some of the other movies were, but I'm just like, wow. When I started watching Black Lightning, he was on the screen, and I thought, why does this guy seem familiar? Well, it turns out when I looked up the IMDb after this movie, because I thought, how many credits does this guy have? Oh, my God.
Just keeps going.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, because watching Black Lightning, I never thought to look him up. I just thought it'll come to me eventually. And then all of a sudden there's all these movies I'm watching. Then I looked up the IMDb and I'm like, oh, wait. It turns out he plays small roles in a lot of stuff I've watched.
Yeah.
But I really liked him in this. He was a higher class grunt than what you typically see in these kind of movies.
Yeah. He wasn't a Benny like in The Mummy where he was a toady.
Right.
He was capable. This was his niche on the food chain. He's a doer.
He was the former U.S. Army cavalry guy that was in The Mask of Zorro, the guy who was working with the bad guy to pull the village out from under these people.
Mm-hmm.
That's who this guy reminded me of. And he played him the same way.
Yeah.
And it was really good. But he did get his just desserts in the end, though.
Yes, he did.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he did.
Well, my first thought was, there's your karma for letting the kid drive across the bridge. What a jerk.
Comes back to bite you in the butt.
My biggest surprise the first time I saw the movie was the Phantom's father. So the 20th Phantom.
Mm-hmm.
which is not something that's done. The newspaper strips and the comic books will sometimes do flashbacks to previous Phantoms, because when you have a legacy character, narratively, you have room to do this.
Right.
But it's not usually done that like he sees his, predecessor, kind of like his Obi-Wan Kenobi. But that's Patrick McGowan. I mean, Patrick McGowan, who a lot of Americans know him from Braveheart. He was freaking Danger Man. He was Prisoner.
Hang on. What was he in Braveheart?
He was the king.
Yep, that's where I recognize him from. I didn't think to look him up. I just thought
the problem with Scotland is that it's full of Scots. That's the same guy. At one point, he was in the lead to play James Bond before Sean Connery was cast. No joke.
Oh.
That
would have been interesting.
I think he took himself partially out of the running because at that point he didn't want to get tied. He's notoriously a control freak.
Mm-hmm.
When The Prisoner was done, I mean, he was an executive producer. He had damn near final say on everything in that show. And which is why it's kind of so brilliant. It's also just really odd at times, but I love the interactions that Kit Walker has with his dead father.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well,
me too.
We're in the 7th inning and you're down 2 skulls to none. And it's like, oh my God, your dad's an ass.
Exactly. He's a dead ass.
Or at the end when he's like, fortunately Diana knew her own mind, and maybe I can get some sleep. I'm like, I love this guy. Like, he's sticking around to make certain the lineage is secure, and then he's out of there.
Because because when he tells Kit at the towards the end, when he says that he likes her in terms of Christy Swanson, and he's like, what did he say? Something that if he makes a crack, like, oh, it's about time, son. That took long enough.
Yes, he totally does.
Yep, I like that character. I mean, in the newspaper strip and stuff, it probably works as a flashback, but I like the fact that in this, it's like he's as much playing like a counselor to his son as he's a little bit Jiminy Cricket. He's a little bit
well, he's present without having to result with doing a flashback.
Right.
Exactly.
You can drop him into a scene and not lose momentum. Because at the end, Christy Swanson leaves the room, Kit's getting ready to walk out, and then his dad's behind him. And it's just, the scene keeps flowing because dad's right there.
I liked when he was in the back of the taxi cab talking to his dad. And the cab driver keeps looking back like, okay, there's nobody there, but he's like, he never had a look like, oh, he's talking to himself. No, you could tell that the cab driver knew that there was somebody back there that he wasn't seeing.
Yep.
So when Kit finally says the direction for him to drive in, and he's like, oh, are you talking to me this time?
Yes.
I had to laugh.
And the cab driver and he had already established that rapport. When he comes out and he's like, when he holds Mr. Walker, sir, and he holds the door and he's like, you're in a good mood. He goes, I had those gems appraised over lunch, and you can call me Al.
Yeah.
Because where is the part? Was that the part where he's talking to his dad in the back of the cab? Was that after the Phantom had gotten into the cab, said something, and then told the cab driver, oh, I'm a friend of Kit Walker's, and then he leaves the game to go chase the bad guys?
This is after the zoo. So when the cab shows up out of nowhere.
Because he can't tell that they're the same person. It's like Superman and Clark Kent, like, what?
He-Man and Prince Adam. It's even worse. He takes off his shirt. Doesn't even cover this. Funny bit
I have
of
a
trivia.
funny He-Man story for you afterwards, Fred.
funny. Oh, I can't wait. A random funny bit of trivia. I didn't realize this till today when I was reading up on the movie. So Billy Zane, because now, Billy Zane shaved head all the time, no hair. Billy Zane wanted to make certain that the cowl fit perfectly. So he filmed all the scenes where he had hair first, and then he shaved his fucking head.
Really?
Wow.
Yes, his head is shaved when he is doing all the Phantom stuff.
Wow.
Wow, he really did take it seriously. That's cool.
Apparently, when they
That's
were
method.
when they were prepping for the movie, they had built kind of like an '89 in Batman, where they did the padded suit for Keaton to make him look more muscular. They did a padded suit version. Well, between the time that he got the role and they started filming, about 9-10 months had passed. Billy Zane spent that time working out, apparently. So when they went to film it, they took all the padding out.
Yeah.
And that is him wearing just the spandex layer. He also does a fair amount of his own stunts where possible in this. And I think that's something else about this film. Look, growing up in the 80s, we got used to the composited backgrounds and things, but not everything was CG replacement. And this film still has so much real stunt work and real effects. And I think I don't care how good you are. Outside of Jurassic Park, the first one, when the T-Rex comes through the fence, very seldom am I ever 100% convinced by CG. This film, I can buy it because so much of it is, when he drops off of the plane onto something. Now, granted, it wasn't really moving that fast, but that's a real guy dropping from a platform onto the back of a horse.
Right.
Well, okay.
I feel bad for that horse.
I feel bad for that wolf. That wolf is literally chasing a horse for like 20 minutes.
Yeah,
that wolf's like, fuck you, I'm tired.
Exactly. I'm gonna go eat that rabbit.
My son didn't watch a lot of the movie with me, but he did watch the part where the wolf and the horse were having a nonverbal conversation, and he thought that was funny. Like when the horse just shakes its head at the wolf, and the wolf is barking at the horse. I'm just like, oh, the animals are having a conversation. And
the Phantom has this. He can relate to animals, so his animals can kind of relate to each other.
Well, you were talking about the CG, and it was well done enough that there were a couple times when I questioned if there was any CGI in here at all, or
the very
if they had found or if they had found conventional ways to actually pull some of this stuff off, because there was no CGI that was obvious enough for me to say, oh, it looks out, because it didn't. All of this looked like stuff that they could have done with hands-on technology. And I really appreciated that. I was actually thinking to myself, maybe it's possible they didn't use a lot of the computer stuff because I thought
it was 96
budgetary, or maybe, but
the only time to me that it was noticeable is right at the end when they're on the beach before she gets on the plane with Catherine Zeta-Jones. They sort of have that like background of this tropical paradise. And it's like, not so much, but okay.
And that's,
but it also reminded me, it kind of reminded me though of like, this is far-fetched, but like the 10 Commandments. It had that sort of, campy, not biblical in this case, but
real projection stuff,
right, just that feel to it. So even though I was like, that's not real, but it was still enjoyable. Like it's still like fun.
It's kind of like watching. A while back, I picked up a Hitchcock set at Big Lots, and it's all I think it's the Universal Hitchcock movies. So it's like Rear Window, North by Northwest, The Birds, Psycho are all in there. And a lot of, and I introduced Amanda to North by Northwest because she'd never seen it. Not my
I've
fault.
never seen it. So
God
it's okay.
bless America.
You know I don't do dramatic movies.
But North by Northwest is not a dramatic movie in a sense.
Okay.
It's you know what it is? It's a chase movie.
Okay, I'm down then. I like a chase
It's
movie.
Cary Grant getting this case of mistaken identity, and then literally going from Manhattan, New York, to Mount Rushmore. Well, there
Are you
are
sure it's not
scenes.
Cannonball Run?
Oh, one of my favorites of all time. But anyway,
Never seen it.
Oh.
Hence why I started a podcast called
Anyway,
JD's
I can't.
Geekery.
I can't. Anyway.
Done.
Anyway, North by Northwest uses a lot of rear projection technology where Hitchcock would project back because you're not going to get Cary Grant climbing around on the top of Mount Rushmore, even though they're in those scenes. I can tell it's rear projection. By that point, I'm so invested in the character, so invested in the plot, and Bernard Herrmann's score has just sucked me in completely. That. I'm in for the whole damn film. And that's kind of how The Phantom is that also though, and I wonder about this, and I hadn't looked this up, because this was not a huge budget film. I think they had to make more creative choices.
Yes.
So like, if you remember, there's the scene of the Clipper, the Pan Am Clipper, which
I
if
love
you put
that
a Pan Am
scene
Clipper in a movie, I'm done because I'm good.
I love that so much.
And so you see Catherine Zeta-Jones planes fly up, and then you hear a radio message, and it's down on the ground. It's down. They've captured it. It's on the water. So they didn't waste time in effects doing this whole sequence for visuals that we didn't need to see.
Yeah.
And I think that's a reason why so much of the visuals in this film hold up is some of those unnecessary shots, which would have involved much more effects, just didn't happen.
Right. It didn't need to. Like, we don't need to see them take. That would have added. There would have been no added value.
Yeah, and instead they spent their money on some crazy good sets. Xander Drax's office. I want to move into that office. That is so Art Deco.
It is, and just the costumes as well. Like, everything is tailored so sharply.
Yes.
It's just perfect. Going back to Xander Drax, I love Treat Williams. Just his pattern of speech throughout, like, it's just perfect. The cadence, that's the word I'm looking for. Just that sort of sharp clipped, again, words escaping me, not eloquent, but
he always comes across as the guy who's used to being in control of a scene.
Yeah.
That scene in the beginning with Diana's uncle. And how the hell did you get here? Oh, your paper. How much is it?
Yeah.
Well, so much a day. No, the building, the presses, everything. Maybe I'll buy it. And I'm like, I love this guy. He is not used to hearing no.
Yep.
And he plays the character. But it's still not my favorite Xander moment in the whole movie. How he gets rid of the guy that leaked the information.
Oh, the librarian.
He was well, you're all the requests just go for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I get your professional opinion on
turn
something?
the focus.
Yeah. The microscope that killed him.
Yeah, we don't see, well, but the thing is, we don't actually, I love it. You don't see anything.
Yeah.
You see the word liar come into focus. You hear the scream and you cut. Is the guy dead? Is the guy blinded for the rest of his life? We don't know. And that's why it works, because your mind fills in that extra bit.
And it also makes it a great movie for kids, because there's no need for gratuitous violence in this. There's no need for there's violence, but, people die. But, like, how many times do they actually use the sword versus, Christy Swanson elbowing some guy, kneeing some guy, something like that. So it gives that sort of sense of adventure to, like, a young kid who would love this kind of thing. Like, I don't know, a young Fred who would
Please, I'd have eaten this up.
Exactly.
This is, to me, is in that category again of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It's wholesome.
There's killing.
Yeah.
But it's pretty bloodless. Lee Falk, actually, the Phantom in the books doesn't actually kill a lot of people. The guns are used to wound or disarm. He is not a murderer.
Yeah.
He didn't kill a lot of people in this. I think.
Shadow, that guy's a murder machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey, you do what you got to do.
I'd say the Phantom, he disabled people. He knocked people out. He kicked those two guys down the stairs. Ow, 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 ow. But
That's a wolf sit on one of them.
Yes, and he tells him if he moves, eat him. And the wolf's like, ooh, like he's looking real close.
Are
like,
you
I'm gonna
moving?
eat you.
Yeah.
Are you moving?
I just ran 20 minutes behind a horse. I'm starving.
I could go for a sizzler right now.
Yeah, I only got 2 viewings of this movie in this week. I was hoping to get a third, but before this podcast, but I didn't. Instead, I'm probably going to end up watching it again tomorrow.
Hell
because the second time through, that is when I realized that this guy is good as the hero because he's not killing anybody. He's not throwing guys around. He's not. You could tell that the guys he's disabling, they're not even going to have any permanent damage.
Right.
In fact, a lot of the villains that do get killed in this movie, he doesn't kill them. They get killed by other means.
Mm-hmm.
James Remar gets killed by Xander Drax.
Yep.
And I don't even think it was on purpose. The guy
he
holding
totally
the
turns
stone,
and destroys him.
Yeah, and then right at the right towards the end of this movie, when they get to the hidden uncharted island and the Dreadnoks show up, and then a few minutes later, the gangster guy that was getting a little too big for his britches. You know, at first he was all in on Xander Drax's plan. Then they get to this island, and then he's having second thoughts. And then he decides to start bossing Zartan around. And Zartan, by the way, who's not Zartan, but yes, he was Zartan, played by the actor who played Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat. The Phantom does not kill any of the main villains.
No.
The pirate leader, because wait a minute, they're the Sang Brotherhood,
Sang
right?
Brotherhood.
So the leader of them kills the gangster, and then Xander Drax kills what was the character's name? Quill. And then Kit Walker, he doesn't even kill Xander Drax. It's great the way they did it because it was like a series of unfortunate events. Unfortunate for the people, for the villains, but fortunate for everybody else because everybody else comes out smelling like roses because none of the good guys in this movie did anything really bad. Look,
Straight up
I
karma.
love Star Wars, but Luke Skywalker, he killed a whole lot of people on the Death Star.
Oh, dude, Luke Skywalker's like top 10 mass murderer. Yeah,
he. I mean, now I'm not one to usually pick apart a lot of movies like that because honestly, if I did let a lot of tiny details get to me, it would wreck a lot of movies for me. Which is why, again, this thing goes on that short list of perfect movies. There is nothing for me to nitpick. There is nothing that bothered me enough to. I mean, in future viewings, it could be a thing where sometimes you could put your favorite movie on, but if you're not in just the right mood for it,
exactly,
you know,
it's not the perfect movie
that will pull you out of it. I mean, even some of my favorite movies, sometimes I'll sit down and watch it, and I'm just like, just not right now. Not this guy that's in the movie, or that plot line. All of a sudden, all right, I'm going to find something else to watch. But The Mummy and the Princess Bride, I don't ever get that way. Even if I'm not in a good mood, sometimes watching those will make me feel better. Well, this may very well go on that same list. The movie Definitely Maybe, starring Ryan Reynolds as a father who tells the story of how he got together with his mother to her. Well, she says all kinds of, all right, there's a lot of off-color humor, but it's a very genuine performance, and I absolutely love it. That is one where if I'm feeling crap about the world, I'll actually put that on because at some point it'll make me feel better.
Yeah.
And there's a movie that came out last year called Yesterday, where this guy is a Beatles fan, but he's a struggling musician, and all of a sudden something happens, and it changes the world. And somehow he's the only guy that actually remembers the Beatles. No, not the only guy. He's the only main character that remembers the Beatles. And he goes on this journey sharing their music with the world that just makes me all kinds of googly inside. I mean, I love it. And then at the end of the movie, I get tears because it's such a happy ending. Forrest Gump is also on that list. I don't care what mood I'm in when Forrest Gump comes on. I will watch it. I will enjoy every moment of it, except for the movies that can't make my perfect list are usually because there's one or two things that really nag me or upset me, and it keeps them from being, they're still great, but not perfect. Yeah. That is one of them. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is my favorite of the Indiana Jones movies. But the Nazi rally really bothers me. I have no problem watching the Nazis get the crap beaten out of them, the flags and all that. But that ceremony where they're burning the books and you see all the fascist imagery really right there, making you feel like this is so well done that this is how the people at the rally could have felt. It takes me out of it because I don't want to stay with it at that point, just for a few minutes. And as soon as the rally's over and Indy and his father are making their escape, I'm back to absolutely loving it. Yeah. But that can't go on a list of perfect movies because it's got something that either pulls me out or makes me want to pull out. But The Phantom does not have any of those problems.
Where were you in 96?
Exactly.
You know what? I think it was just one of those things that it came and went in the theater.
Yeah.
And then, my dad was in the Army. We moved around a lot when I was growing up. So a lot of times we didn't know if we were going to someplace else. Will there be video stores? Will there be, will I have access to any of this stuff? And I have a feeling that this movie, until I worked at Blockbuster, may have just fallen through the cracks.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that, it's not like if you didn't see the ad on the 4 channels of TV that you had, I didn't have cable. Well, I was in college at that point. But, so growing up, if you didn't see the ad on TV or if you were at the theater seeing something else, like it was easy to miss stuff.
Oh, well, and again, you have a character that, yes, he's been around for how long, but it's kind of like saying it's like Doc Savage, and people are like, who? Doc Savage, who at one point was more popular than Superman, but nobody knows him. I just looked up the movies of the summer of 96. It was up against Twister. It was up against Mission Impossible, the first one.
You just named the 2 top reasons why I didn't see this in the theater.
I got another one for you. It was up against The Rock.
Oh, The Rock. Wait, what year did Independence Day come out?
It was up against The Cable Guy.
Oh, that.
It was up against Independence Day.
Okay, that's why. Independence Day, Twister, and what was the other one you named?
The Rock. Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage, one of the best action movies.
Yes, those are the reasons why The Phantom never happened in the theater for me. In fact, when I started working at Blockbuster and we started getting some of these things in, I think that's the reason why The Phantom didn't happen then either, because The Mummy came out on VHS, and I kept renting The Rock for a while there. There were customers that couldn't get it because we'd always say, it's always rented out. They just didn't mention it. It was one of the employees that kept renting it.
I mean, the summer of 96, I was living in a place where we had no air conditioning, and a buddy of mine was living in the house with me. It was my music fraternity house in college. So we would go to the Dollar Theater a lot, because you'd catch like a 5 o'clock show, and by the time you came out, things had cooled off enough that, I can go to sleep now and, not die of heat stroke.
Yeah, because
we saw, I mean, The Phantom came and went, like you said. We saw The Rock a couple of times. We saw Twister a couple of times. I went with a
Mission
buddy
Impossible.
Funny thing, Mission Impossible, I actually saw that right after I came back from my first trip to Europe. And I was on that bridge in Prague. And I'm like, wait, what? Wait a minute, what? So that was a May release. But yeah, Mission Impossible was now that film is probably one of the weaker ones in the series because the recent ones have been so damn good. But that movie was a big deal that summer. The Rock was a big deal. Independence Day, need I say more?
Nope. No. Independence Day I saw 3 times at the theater that summer. The first time opening day with my buddy Josh Fields, who we went to see a lot of the big geeky and the big sci-fi type, but we went to see a lot of those in the theater. I saw Independence Day again, I think later that same week. I went with my parents, and my mother was horrified by half of it. The aliens, she was done. Once they showed them in the autopsy scene, and that was it. She was done. She was absolutely checked out of the movie. If she could have left, she would have. She was completely disgusted by it. And then I saw it again just before it left the movie theater. I saw Twister at the cheap dollar theater at Fort Benning, Georgia.
Never saw Twister.
My sister and I went to go see Twister at the base theater, and then we saw it again later the same day. We went back and saw it again. We saw that movie so many times between the base theater and getting the video, and then over the years. Last week, I texted her in all caps, and I'm like, Twister is on Netflix. 5 minutes later, we started watching. She must have gotten that message almost right away and started watching it, because then we just started texting dialogue from that movie and
That's awesome.
GIF images from it, because it was one of those movies that we saw so many times that my sister and I, we don't have a lot in common. We have a very similar sense of humor. And then there's the movies that we watch on repeat. We tend to agree on those too. Yeah. So Twister and Beetlejuice and Ladybug starring Rodney Dangerfield. Those are some of the movies that we watched a billion times together, and we would we'd memorize the dialogue so we could have the conversations back and forth, which is what happened with Twister. But yeah, those are all the reasons why the Phantom never had a chance at the theater, because of those movies.
I just looked up the release date. The Phantom came out June 7th, 1996.
Wow, that was entirely the wrong summer.
Well,
and the wrong season for that.
It was the wrong day, because The Rock came out June 7th, 1996. They opened the same day.
Yeah.
No one had heard really of Billy Zane at that point, because that was before Titanic, right?
Yeah.
Titanic was 97.
Dead Calm. I think he had done Dead Calm by then. Yeah. I don't think done
Sean
Tales.
Connery.
Had he done? Was he in one of the? He's in Tales of the Dark Side. Wasn't he in Demon Knight, which is
maybe
a lesser known film? So
you got that right.
I shall look.
But you open him up against, Sean Connery, who's coming back in his post-Indiana Jones era hotness, where he was cranking out movies like The Rock.
Well, right.
And you've got Nicolas Cage. Well, and you got Nicolas Cage, who his career was rising so far and so fast that was just a string of 50 movies that he did in 5 years. That everybody remembers him from.
I've had an overwhelming urge the last week to watch National Treasure.
It's on Disney Plus.
I know. I looked it up today.
I've been feeling that one too. Nicolas Cage is one of my favorite actors, and not because I think he's great. No, it's because nobody, and I mean nobody, plays batshit crazy better than Nicolas Cage does. Every time he plays a role like a super scientist or a super archaeologist or
a ghostwriter.
Yeah, I was going to say the super writer or something. All I can think is
Denise Richards as a rocket scientist.
Oh, hell yeah.
You know what? That is only slightly dumber than Nicolas Cage playing the astrophysicist that knew that the Earth was going to die in that movie that I can't remember the name of, and who cares, because I enjoyed it because Nicolas Cage plays a great crazy person.
Yeah, he really does.
Although I think my favorite thing of his is from when he was on Saturday Night Live. I don't have no idea when. He did a skit that was called, it's like Asswipe Jones. And like he and his wife are trying to come up with like a name for their child. And she's like, Fred. And then he starts making up like all of these horrible nicknames that are completely, makes no sense, or like John or Nicholas or whatever it might be. And then the pizza guy comes knocking on the door and he's like, yeah, I have an order here for Asswipe Jones. And he goes, it's Asswipe.
Oh my God, that's where that comes from.
Still one of my mother's favorites. Yes.
So. Though, to get back to the Phantom again, I think, and again, I love pulp movies. My holy trinity of not Steven Spielberg pulp movies and not The Mummy is The Rocketeer, The Shadow, and The Phantom. Mm-hmm. And of those three, I think The Phantom probably did the worst because in terms of recognition and everything. It's a lot like John Carter, where somebody got the rights to this character and went, oh, internationally, it's been a big thing. He's been around forever. So people will just know it. We don't have to market it. Mm-hmm. People will just know it. But of those films, I mean, I really think The Phantom is one of those movies that I can go 5 years without watching it. I can go a month without watching it. Mm-hmm. I can sit down and enjoy myself just as much each time. And I'll get mad when if I have to stop it and come back to it later.
That's why it goes on that list with The Princess Bride and the Mummy and The Mask of Zorro. And you'll notice all of those movies have some common DNA.
Yeah.
Whether it's spiritually or narratively or performance-wise with this. They're all same way. I can go 10 years without watching. I think I did go like 8 years without watching The Mask of Zorro until it was on Netflix a couple months ago, and I watched
Fantastic movie.
And I watched it again a day later.
I think I watched that with you, Fred. I think we saw that in the movie theater.
Oh, we did. Again, because Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yeah, of course.
And the scene in the barn when they first meet, and it's almost like a dance. Where she tries to stop him from stealing the horse. And I'll tell you, it's growing up in the 80s, I don't like damsels in films. Mm-hmm. I like the strong,
me neither,
independent woman. I like the one that gives just as good as she gets.
Yep.
And you drop her in, because up until, if I remember correctly, up until that scene in the movie, she's kind of pushed down a lot by the narrative and by things around her. She's not able to shine. She's told to be the lady. She's told to do this. You get her in that scene in the barn, damn, her character that's who she is.
Yep.
And
I have to rewatch. That's been too long.
And that's, again, how I reacted to Christy Swanson in this film. You didn't see as much of it from Catherine Zeta-Jones in this film, only because narratively she didn't have as much to do.
No, but I like the way she switches sides at the end.
Yeah.
And
she sees him on the mast.
Yep.
And he goes.
It feels so natural when she does it. She's not selling out the bad guys because she realizes, they're doing something wrong, and no. She does it because she realizes
us girls got to stick together.
Yes, the girl that's in trouble, even though she can take care of herself, she doesn't necessarily know that. So she teams up and she helps save her, even though it's arguable that she needed it or not. I mean,
they needed a pilot.
Well, well, I was going to say to the outside world, we could tell she didn't, but maybe the character couldn't. And she's like, us girls got to stick together. And I'm just like, that is one of those modern storytelling type moves that I'm glad that it made me glad that the movie was made when it was, because we would not have gotten that scene.
No,
Right.
In an
they would have had
earlier
to tell
era.
you. They would have had to have all this dialogue
Yeah.
get in the
Exactly.
way.
And again, I
Um,
think that's why it holds up, is because there's no damsel in distress. So you don't look at it and go like, oh God, those old movies where, she has to be saved and, all of that sort of, that trope.
Yep, I'm with Fred on that.
Yeah.
The damsel characters, they don't do.
No.
Yeah, they don't. I don't.
Yeah.
They don't need to be rescued.
There's no fun in that.
No, in
No.
fact, people can say what they will about Disney movies, and people do. People that don't approve, yeah, they have their thoughts, and I don't care. I'm not even going to entertain people that just bitch about things just to bitch about it. But especially in this modern era, the way Disney, they handle these characters that are princesses, and at one time would have necessarily been the definition of damsels, where they're not anymore. If you watch Tangled, the only reason Rapunzel there could be considered a damsel is because she's locked in this tower, but not from lack of trying to get out. And when she does finally get out, that is the end of her arc as being anybody that can be placed under the thumb of anybody else.
Yeah.
She's an ass kicker after that. She's great. She's funny. My children will not watch Frozen with me. They will not watch Frozen 2 with me. I like those movies because I like Anna and I like Elsa, and they're great characters on their own. And when I was watching this movie, I just thought, if anything, if we could, it does suck we didn't get a sequel, or the trilogy, and it does suck that even though the potential was there, that it could have been but I would have liked to have thought that if we did get a sequel and it was done right, that we would have seen the further adventures of Christy Swanson and Catherine Zeta-Jones returning in those roles, having bigger roles, and actually seeing them further fleshed out with a lot of substance.
Well, and Diana Palmer is that is the Phantom's wife in the comics. That is Kit Walker's wife.
I didn't know.
They end up having 2 kids.
Are they both girls?
No, a boy and a girl.
Okay.
A Kit and Heloise, if I remember correctly.
It would have been interesting if they'd both been girls and one of them became the Phantom.
So in one of there is a historical past Phantom that was female, and at one point there was was it the cartoon, the 2040 series, which is, I don't know if it's canonical or not, but at one point they actually talked about that was the other cartoon that happened, the Phantom 2040, which came out in the 90s, I want to say.
That sounds awesome.
It was kind of like James Bond Jr. and all that crap. They did introduce a female Phantom in that.
That was said with a very heavy dose of sarcasm.
Yeah.
That sounds atrocious, and I will never watch it.
It's another example of someone in a marketing department somewhere going, okay, what IPs do we own?
Yeah.
Like the RoboCop TV series. How
can we milk this for every bit of money we possibly can?
Yeah.
And ruin it at the same time.
So, okay, Fred, you probably know better than, or maybe Liz, maybe you know too. I have never seen it. That's why I'm asking. Is there existing merchandise, not of the Phantom, but from this movie? Because I have never seen anything.
Okay, so
at all.
There's
a Fred question.
There's very, very little. Like I said, I've got my ring, which was a promo when I went to see it in the theater. They gave this out. Now, there's also, if you notice in the movie, he wears 2 rings. He has one on his right, one on his left. He wears the skull on his right. He has another one where the skulls are on the side. It's got a cross on the middle. That's the Sigil of Good. And it's a cheesy name. But in Australia, they sold a set of the 2 rings together. There is a god-awful action figure that was marketed with a skull throne I think it was in like South America or something, and his head looks like a smashed grape, but the throne's nice. And aside from that, the only merchandise I've ever seen was the soundtrack, which originally had a truncated release when it came out, and La La Land Records did an extended score, which I bought a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were the movie posters, and there were two of
Wow.
them.
That's really
There's the cheesy ass Slam Evil, which you can tell
Mhm.
was developed in a marketing department.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
the teaser poster. And the teaser poster, when I was in college and I had seen this, the guy that owned the one theater in town was like a distributor. And so he had this little alcove off to the side of the lobby of the theater where you could go in. And every so often, when they would clear out posters from the theaters that he owned
Mhm.
and he distributed to, he would sell one sheets in there.
Yep.
So I have this one sheet, and it's still rolled up in a tube. I don't know why I've never taken it out, but it's the Phantom in the bottom right corner sitting on the throne, okay? And it's this big dark background with this beam of light coming in from the upper left, and it's just reflecting on him. If you look really carefully in the beam of light, it just says, "The Ghost Who Walks."
Oh, no.
And I'm like,
that's cool.
I'm like, why the hell was that not the movie poster?
Right.
I'm like, I would go see that movie. But yeah, there were no
That's fantastic.
toys. There
Well,
were
that's because everything was flooded with Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie toys.
Oh,
God, no.
ah, ah.
We couldn't give those away.
Oh God. Yes.
I remember buying many of them and using the parts as custom fodder on my G.I. Joes.
Oh,
Yeah.
And
so
now,
So awful.
now, 22 years later, well, most toys, I still look at them as, ooh, collectible or custom fodder.
yeah.
Hmm.
You know what?
Sometimes both.
An interesting parallel is this movie had as little merchandising as the Brendan Fraser Mummy did. If you think about it, the Mummy
That did,
got a
yeah, that
half-assed
wasn't-
toy line eventually, but it was bad.
yeah, there wasn't anything for that movie ahead of time.
No.
And yes, later on they did get a toy line. There was more that they did with the second movie.
Yeah, but it was still crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it still wasn't good. What they never did, though, was try to approach merchandise for that god-awful third Mummy movie that was so bad that Rachel Weisz refused to come back.
I don't remember a third one. I remember
Dra-
like Scorpion King.
Curse of the
Doom.
Dragon Emperor, and
Yes.
they recast
Right.
Evie as, I can't think of what her name is, the actress who played her. JD, there is actually one bit of Phantom merchandise coming out. Well, there's two things that are coming out featuring the Phantom now. They were supposed to be out this year. I think with COVID, things have kind of been pushed
Right.
back. But at Toy Fair this year, Diamond is doing figures from that cartoon I mentioned, the Defenders of the Earth.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's
I
a
was gonna
Phantom
say,
in
not
that.
the 2040 thing.
No,
Um,
but here's the good one. So
Uh-oh.
Boss Fight Studios has the rights to Zorro.
Oh,
Hold on. Oh, hold on, my friend. Flash Gordon, including the movie one, because I already pre-ordered the Sam Jones figure, and
Zorro.
Phantom.
Yeah,
and-
because isn't Zorro in that line?
And the Phantom is going to come with Hero the horse.
Okay, yeah, because
So he'll be 4-inch.
Yeah, because a buddy of mine, my co-host on my regular podcast, General Geekery, Brian did mention that he thought there was supposed to be a Zorro figure in that line, which I was already in for buying because, again, Zorro, long before the Mask of Zorro, long before I saw it in the theater, when I was a kid in the 90s, there was a television series about Zorro. I was fascinated by that. I watched every episode of it.
Well, when I was a kid in the early '80s, late '70s, the same people who did the old Lou Schirmer, who did the old Tarzan cartoon, did a Lone Ranger cartoon and a Zorro cartoon. He did all three because at one point God love
nice.
CBS, because CBS would just take everything and mash it together. It was the Tarzan, Lone Ranger, Zorro Adventure Hour for one
Wow.
season of cartoon. Yeah, this
Yep.
is the stuff
Wow,
I
that-
grew up on, man. Straight
Yep.
up pulp.
I was just looking at
Um,
other movies that came out in 1999 along with or that summer, and one that I
96?
no, I'm talking about for the Mummy. Sorry,
Oh, yeah.
Mystery Men. Oh God,
I
I
shovel.
forgot about that movie.
I shovel well.
The
all right, that was
spleen.
funny. Forgot about that movie. That was funny.
Another
Um,
movie that would be on my perfect list, though, also that same summer, Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Such a good movie.
See,
Saw it, laughed at it, never felt the need to watch it again.
Oh, so
you know what goes, if you have to go for one of my perfects, you got to go back to, I think it's 85, 86. I'm really ashamed I don't know the year.
I judge you right now for that.
It's a little film.
I do too, and I
It's
don't
a-
even know what movies he's gonna name, but I'm judging him too.
It's a little film about a guy who owns a restaurant who just wants to get his fiance back after she's kidnapped at the airport, and he happens to have his buddy go with him that
Yep.
has a semi truck. Big
Yep.
Trouble in
Trouble in
Little
Little China.
China.
A
Oh,
Greatest
yeah.
movie
brilliant.
ever made.
Yes.
Hey, audience, I have never met a bigger geek for that movie than Fred.
oh,
Um,
Love that movie.
every time I see anything on Facebook about that movie, I
It's from
usually
Fred.
tag Fred.
yeah.
No, I usually first I check to see if it was Fred.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't, I tag him in it.
It's usually
um,
Aaron Dietrich and I are the two people that are just big trouble, big trouble, big trouble,
Yep.
big trouble.
Such a great movie.
There-
That is a perfect movie.
It really
I
is, start
just-
to
The
finish.
Pork Chop Express.
On a dark and stormy night when the lightning howls and the thunder roars.
I'm gonna have to watch that tomorrow, I think.
I remember the other movie that's on my perfect list, and had you not been talking about late 90s releases, Starship Troopers. I have seen that movie countless numbers of times. I love it every
Yes.
single time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Every time I think it can't get more ridiculous.
It
Yeah.
finds a new way.
Yeah, I was going to say, every time it can't get more gory. Oh, yes, it can. It can't get any more shock for the sake of shock. Oh, yes, it can. I'm like, nope. Every time I think this movie, that's it. They can't do it. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, they did. Wow, they really. Oh,
Once
wow.
again, though,
Oh,
Denise Richards playing a part that
A
should
pilot.
yeah,
You're letting her
No.
fly things.
Yes. See, she did. You know what? She is a good comparison to Nicolas Cage because you're right. Anything I've ever seen her in, I do not buy. She
No.
is full of crap.
No.
But the difference is, Nicolas Cage is funny, so
Yeah.
he can pull it off. Where
Yeah.
she is not funny,
No, she
and
just,
I do not take her seriously.
no,
I don't.
just a bad actress.
I just.
Oh.
But Starship. Oh God, I love that movie so much. I've seen it so many times, and again, I don't care. I'll just watch. If I catch it halfway through on TV, I don't care. I'm watching it until the
Yep.
end. If I can only
Yeah.
see the beginning of it, I don't care. I'm watching
Yep.
it.
I'll tell you another one that gets me, and it's cheesy, campy as hell, but I love it. It's a little movie about a former football player. Used to play with the New York Jets. He's on a flight with a reporter. They crash land at this crazy inventor's house. He shoves them on a rocket. They blast off to this other world called Mongo.
What
Dum
Uh,
dum
the
dum dum
hell
dum dum
are
dum
you
dum.
talking
Flash.
about?
Flash Gordon, baby.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Woo.
Wow.
Yep. I've never seen it.
Now I haven't seen it forever, but damn.
Okay.
I think that's I think that's actually one that I've always been kind of hoity-toity about
my
for no
God.
very good reason. I shouldn't be, but I always just kind of looked at it and I thought, is it supposed to look stupid because it looks stupid?
So it is so stylized, and it is lifted
Mhm.
like right off the comic pages that it just works.
All right, fine.
We have a group of
Say
people.
no more. I'll just put it on my list of shit to watch, and then I'll say you were right.
Here.
Shut up.
We have a bunch of people
Um,
that get together once a month. It's a local thing. It's beer movie night. We all get together. We bring some craft beer. We pick two B movies out of a hat. We throw them in and we watch it as a double feature. 2 years ago, we had a couple nights where, man, that second movie was rough. And we just pulled it out, and to palate cleanse, we threw in Flash Gordon. There was one night I was so hammered, I don't remember watching it. There are photos of me watching it. I don't remember, but it was that movie. Because on top of it, you have Queen doing the soundtrack, and Max von Sydow as Ming the Merciless, who JD, when he gets married, when he's getting married at the end, takes this woman to be his lawfully wedded wife of the hour and for the hour.
Wow. You know.
Love it.
All right, fine. I'll put that on my list of movies. Shut up. I'll just, you know what? Because I think it's one of those things. I think that was one of those cases where when you go long enough without seeing something, you just kind of have it in your mind that, you know, it doesn't matter if I ever see it. Yeah. I think it was one of those things that I've overlooked it for so long. See, The Phantom, I can argue, got forgotten about.
Yeah, just didn't know about
Gordon.
Yeah.
Flash Gordon, I can't say it was forgotten about because pop culture wise, it's always out there. There's always references to it. And
Gordon's
so all of that. So I think it was just more like, I think it just got to the point where I was like, maybe I'll see it someday.
You have the beard. You can cosplay as the Hawkmen.
No, the only character I'm qualified to cosplay as is Dr. Octopus. But no, okay. The one I've met Fred twice in my life. One time I was cosplaying as a Fun School G.I. Joe character at a convention in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Fantastic.
But well, all right. So for this initial experimental, hopefully recurring podcast, JD Cinematic Geekery, or no, I think I'm going to go with Journey into Cinematic Geekery.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Hey, I have no graphic design skills, so I'm just going to handwrite that shit, and I'm going to put it in front of the screen.
Do you like Joss Whedon's end credits? Grr.
Arg. But yes, Fred and Liz, thank you so much for joining me as my first guest on this show. I'm really glad that your discussion finally had me watching this, and I'm not at all disappointed. In fact, I was absolutely shocked that all I had heard about the movie was actually underplaying it.
Yeah.
So, but thank you for listening. And thank you for being the guests for this show. At some point, if you guys would like to come back and discuss another movie, that's probably in the cards because
Big Trouble in Little China.
Watching a lot of
yeah, Big Trouble in Little China.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good movie. It's been a while since I've seen it. By a while,
I feel like there was
2
a
years.
butt in that, but
No. I was gonna say it's been a while since I've seen it, and
I would come back for your Flash Gordon episode once you watch it, because I think you're going to be surprised.
I think I'm feeling peer pressure. What is this? Like high school again? Nice. But
come on, man, take a drink.
Yeah.
Come on,
watch some Flash Gordon, dude.
No, it sucks. It turns out I really suck at conformity and cooperation.
Fine, don't watch Flash Gordon. I don't care.
That's right. We don't want you to watch it.
You wouldn't like it anyway. You know what? I don't think you'd understand it.
Yeah.
Well, fine. Just for that, I think I'll watch it. Screw you guys. I'm going home. But, all right, everybody. Thanks for joining me.
Maybe.
Okay.